It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Divas That Care. My name is Candice Gish. Thank you so much for tuning in to our amazing program. We are now in our 11th season, so I want to thank each and every one of you that has been a listener of ours for all these years. It's because of all of you that we've continued to interview amazing people from around the world. Today's guest is Karen Black, and Karen has been a guest on the Divas That Care. I just haven't had the opportunity to interview her, so I'm so excited to have her onto my program. Well, as I said, let's get started, everyone. Welcome to the program, Karen. I'm excited to have you on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Candice. Such a privilege. Thank you.
Well, you know what? It is my pleasure. You are such inspiring and empowering woman. The things that you're doing out there is helping so many people. And I'm going to be diving into some questions later. But before I do that, would you mind, Karen, sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I call myself a nomadic entrepreneur. I left South Africa in 2017 and went to live in Norway, actually, for about 4 months. But to just backtrack a little bit, I'm actually a co-founder of an online business called talentfinders.com. And then I'm also an international publicist. So basically what I do is I brand build individuals that are either entrepreneurs or, career specialists in a specific area. And brand build them through traditional media. So that is more along the lines of editorial, TV interviews, podcasts, magazine publications, whether it's online or print, and also mainstream radio as well.
Oh my goodness, you are a busy woman. I know what it's like to be able to coordinate a lot of stuff just on my end. I can't imagine to be able to do that on a huge scale like that.
Yeah, well, especially for me, it was an interesting decision because I decided in 2016 that I had had enough. And I've always felt, if this makes sense, and maybe some people will relate, but I've always felt like my purpose was bigger than where I was born or the country that I was born. Yeah, so I decided in the October actually of 2016 that I was going to leave, and I went, like I said, initially got on a plane on my birthday actually in January of 2017. Wow. And I actually flew to Norway. I'd never put my foot on Scandinavian soil. Yeah, it was very interesting. So I went and I lived, like I said, I lived in Norway for 4 months. And and since then I've just been traveling over the past 5 years, just building relationships with people, also trying to find an investor for talent finders. So yeah, it's been very interesting. But one of the things I will say briefly is that I feel in many respects, I'm very grateful for the opportunities to have visited so many countries and worked with so many diverse people in so many different cultures. Because one of the things it does teach you is, how you do business in America is not the same as how you do it in Norway. People are far more conservative, less trusting, and even here in the UK, it's very different to the United States. So I've managed, to really and had the privilege to be able to work with many different people and be in those countries and see how things work. So I feel in one respect very blessed, and in another respect, I feel like it's given me an advantage of understanding different cultures.
You know what? And I think that's very important. I love what you just said there. I want to ask you, why publicity? Why is it important for people to have proper publicity?
Well, I mean, you know, for me personally, over the years, I realized, and actually it's something that's come up more now, even from when I started. So when I started, I never studied publicity. I never went to college or did a degree or any of those types of things. And one of the things that I realized with my first ever client was that it's really the power of storytelling. And if you really understand the purpose and the reason behind the publicity, so it's not, oh, I just want to be in magazines because it's a nice thing to have, or it's a nice thing to do. What all of these things are is building blocks, um, to be able to add additional credibility to what you're already doing. So if your brand and your product is good enough, people will know about it, but people really want to know the name and the face behind the brand. And we see that with people like Elon Musk. We see that with people like Sarah Blakely, and various other, entrepreneurs, Richard Branson, all of those people have a story, and that's what sells them. And everything else they do is just, you know, um, you know, is just additional benefit, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
just highlighting what they're doing, but it's really the power of their story, and not everybody comes from rich families, that were able to help them. Some of these people have really built from nothing. They didn't come from, names like, the Hilton family or whatever, where they already had an existing brand, and then their family members wrote off the back of that name. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they already had that platform. So, people like Richard Branson and, Elon, and that, they didn't come from very, super wealthy families. And he's built what he's built, through, and really his story is what sells him at the end of the day, besides his brand and his product.
I like that, because a lot of people might not understand that. So it's really important to get out there to build that brand, like you were saying. Tell us a little bit about, you had mentioned that you do podcasts, you get them on podcasts, and you mentioned earlier too about getting them into, magazines, if that's kind of what they're looking for. If a person here in Canada, the United States, they're looking to have a better understanding about what you are doing and how your services can help them, can you explain a little bit about that part of it?
Yes. So the process, the process, just because I always like to explain the process, because I think very often people don't, they're just talking on a sort of up in the air environment or situation, but they're not explaining the actual process. So the process is that, obviously, if a client or a person comes to me and they want publicity and they want to get more exposure in the media, because that's what's going to help them to leverage more clients, to be able to use that in presentations, to be able to just add to addition of what they're doing. So, how it works is, obviously each client has a unique specific requirement. So all we do is we just adapt, the process to each individual person. So if, for example, I have a client now who's in branding, and recently she's been approved to be in Harper's Bazaar. We've got another client that's going to go on to Good Day New York. So the process really is that they come to us. We obviously discuss what it is that they need and what it is that they're actually looking to achieve. Obviously, part of my process is educating and managing the expectation of the client, because you get some people who will come and they say, oh, I want to be on the cover of Forbes magazine, but nobody knows who they are. It's not going to happen. So you have to also manage, or I have to manage, and my team member has to manage the expectation of the client. But also they have to have some kind of solid story and some kind of angle that we can go in, because we're obviously targeting different publications for different things. So the process is that if they come on board, and whether it's an interview for Good Day New York, obviously we brief the client. We explain what the interview process is going to be. How to manage if a presenter, if it's more business and it's more hardcore. So let's say it's Fox Business, for example. There may be presenters or people that are interviewing them that will throw a curveball to try and throw maybe a negative question to try and get a reaction. So we always try to prepare the clients for those scenarios, to help them to spin it into a positive response, a positive outcome. So each process is different. Obviously, TV, the turnaround time is quicker, but if you're talking about online publications or print publications, online publications generally don't take as long because it's online. So it just depends on the journalist and what a backlog they have. But if you're talking specifically about print, then it could be a 2 to 3 month lead time. But the work gets done, the interviews get done. So either the journalist will do a telephonic or Zoom interview, or they'll meet the person. Obviously, this was before COVID, and do an interview, and either record the interview and then write out the answers, and write the actual interview, or they'll send the questions. I send it on to my clients, the client answers the questions, and then we send the images and the information to the journalist, and then they obviously do the write-up, they do the layouts, they do all of those things. So that's pretty much how it works in terms of the process. And we obviously then, we take the different, whoever we're targeting at that specific time, we take the pitch, and then you obviously have to pitch it to the journalist or to the producer of a show. And then, if they like it, they'll use it, or they might say, well, we want to adapt it slightly, and then we just have to adjust and adapt. And then we obviously prepare the clients accordingly.
Oh, I love it. You know what? I love the idea of everything that you're doing. And this is like the next step for a lot of the individuals that are tuning into our program. This is what you were helping them to get to their next level.
Yes, absolutely. So what I normally suggest is I say to them, if somebody comes to me and they say, oh, they want, they don't have a big budget, then I would suggest an entry level, get them a couple of things. Also, then it builds trust within the relationship. And also the other thing is that it's very important for the person, as much as I do listen to the client 100%, but I also know what I'm doing. So sometimes the client also needs to manage their expectation and also understand and take guidance from us, because if there's specific things that get said, it's not because we're saying that for the fun of it, or that we're trying to be difficult, but there's certain things that you have to do in order to be able to do these things, to break into it at least, and then from there you can build up and build up and build up. But I also don't want people to think, oh, I got into CNN, or I got into CNBC, or I got into some big thing, and now suddenly my career and my business is going to become $1 million business. It doesn't work like that. It's all building blocks. It all adds credibility to what they're doing. And sure, I mean, I've had clients that have ended up getting business out of, interviews that they've done, even on other podcasts, so I also say to people, just because it's small, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because you never know if out of that you're targeting into a whole other audience that doesn't know who you are, and that could generate business where you least expect it. So I always say to people, don't sneeze at small opportunities, because as you grow and as things get better, you will get bigger and things will evolve, but
Yes.
you have to be willing to put up the investment, and you have to be willing to be patient, because it's not going to happen in 5 minutes.
It's not. And that's kind of something that we've always talked about here too, is we've had a lot of people on our program. We talk a lot about mentorship. We talk a lot about finding business coaches and all these different things. When you're building a business, when you're an entrepreneur, you can't do it yourself. You need to surround yourself with all these people in order to have the success that you're wanting to have. And having somebody like yourself who does the publicity part of it, I would rather have somebody like you than try to figure it out and spend my time and energy getting nowhere. You want to have the professionals in order to help you succeed.
Exactly. And not only that, but also the thing is, we have the relationships with the editors and the journalists. And many people will say, but why can't I do it myself? I'm like, by all means, knock yourself out, go do it yourself, but you're not going to get very far, because these people have a lot of thousands of emails coming in every day with pictures and this and that. And half the time you're never going to even get a response. And the other thing is that people, it's different maybe when you get to a famous stage and you have personal relationships with certain journalists, where you'll call up and say, I'm having an event, please, bring the press here. That's a different scenario. But when people don't know you and then you try to go there or pitch or send an email and promote yourself, good luck, because a lot of people don't like that, and it comes across as narcissistic and self-promotional. So unless you have something really good where you feel, okay, I can do this, but generally speaking, it's better to get somebody else and pay somebody else to do it, because they have the relationships.
You know what? I completely agree with you, Karen. People are there for a reason. You've learned the things that you've learned to help others. Why try to reinvent the wheel? Can I ask you, do you work with people around the world?
Yes, I do. So I've worked with many people out of Canada, the United States, Norway, South Africa, obviously, because that's originally where I'm from, and Sweden. It's been a cross-pollination of different countries and different cultures and different people. So yes, everybody around the world. And then there are people, let's say there are people in Sweden that want exposure in the US market. So we're able to do that. Because excuse me, in countries like Norway and Sweden, the media is very small there. In fact, it shrunk substantially over the last number of years, even when I was there. Because a lot of the publications and print, none of those magazines exist anymore. A lot of those things went online, or they just didn't survive and they shut down. So the media in Scandinavia has shrunk substantially as far as print and magazine. And, if you want to talk about fashion magazines or business publication, I went through lists, I spoke with people, I networked, I really tried to embrace the culture there. So it is very different. So, a lot of people do feel that they want to get UK or US media, because they feel it has a lot more clout as far as, getting their, leveling up and getting their name out there. But again, it doesn't mean to say, if somebody, I always say to people, listen, I can get you onto, an online editorial, let's say in South Africa. It's still global. It's just, and it's still going to be seen. And then you can take those things and leverage it back in your own country or your own city or state, So I always try to encourage people to not just be one, tunnel vision, one thing, leverage different things.
I like that. All right. I just want to kind of, before we end our program, I don't want to talk more about your talent finders. Explain to our listeners a little bit about that and how, you were mentioning that you're looking for investors. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so Talent Finders is an online talent community which connects, promotes, and educates talent. So the reason I started talentfinders.com was because at the time I had been, this was back in South Africa, I had been working in a production company, and I realized when they were casting for commercials, that they sent the wrong height, the wrong hair color, the wrong demographic, the whole story. So the idea behind it was to create an online talent community whereby whether you're represented by an agent or you're self-represented, everybody wins, because we don't bypass the agent. I'm not an agent. I'm just a platform that connects you to the right representation. Because also what was happening is, like, for example, top sports people were losing out on jobs because everybody, like, somebody would contact a person and say, oh, do you know who represents this particular artist or this particular athlete? And then they would end up going through 20 people, all of which is adding on a percentage of commission. So by the time the quote for that particular athlete, whether it's an endorsement, whether it's a speaking engagement, or for commercial purposes, would lose the business because the quotation was like ridiculous. So what we wanted to do was be able to connect the right person that's looking for that talent to the correct agent from the beginning, so that they don't actually end up losing out on the work. Because at the end of the day, a lot of athletes or even artists that I had come into contact with who had said that they'd lost out on work because, they just were ill-informed, or the quotation was so ridiculous that they just never got the work, and they never knew about it because the agents were dealing with the negotiation. So the idea really was, initially it was just going to be actors and models, and then it was like, well, we could do musicians, we can do dancers, we could do crew. This can expand into so many different arenas, even entrepreneurs. And people that are looking to promote their skills or promote themselves as a speaker, whatever the case is, can do that. So, again, if they don't have an agent, they can register. If their agencies want to promote more of their talent, they can do that. And how it works is it's a subscription-based business model. The reason for doing that is to keep the riffraff off, and, to try and avoid anybody having, harassments and, fake profiles and all of that, as we see on these premium models. It's great. But as you know, there's a lot of fake accounts that get set up, yes, even in celebrities' names. So try to avoid all of those things. But it's a minimal cost per year to be registered. And really the idea is to create it as one of the biggest platforms for entertainment, but again, expand it, even white label it into other industries. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
You know what, it does. We definitely know a lot of individuals that would be interested in learning more about it. In order to be a part of the platform, do you do an interview process? How does that work?
So what they would do is they go onto the website talentfinders.com, and that's with an S, because some people don't spell it with an S. It's Talent Finders with talentfinders.com. Then if they choose to, they obviously have to go on, and then they choose which package they want. So there's really two offers, $39 a year or $99 a year. And the reason we kept it as that is just because we also didn't want people to feel like they're paying a monthly fee, like you get on some other things, but you're not really getting anything for your money. So we rather wanted to go with an annual fee. And then if they do that, then they obviously pay the money first via PayPal. And then from there, they would register their profile. And then we get a notification I obviously go through and check, or one of my other colleagues goes in and checks just to see that there's no inappropriate images or, fake information. And then once that's done, and everything is sorted out, then we activate the profile. And then they can go in at any point in time and update their images, update their bios. There's no additional cost to that.
Why wouldn't everybody want to be on this?
Yeah, and also, it's interesting because back in 2017, I went and I was in Silicon Valley, and the guy said, talentfinders.com, that domain is worth gold. So I think we chose a good name.
I think you did too. I think you're going to find a lot of people are going to really flock to that. And I know that especially when this last 18 months, a lot of things have changed for so many people, and they're looking for new avenues. They're looking for ways to get that exposure like you're talking about. Yeah. But I think they're really looking outside the box now.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think people want to be in charge more of their own, managing their own things. It doesn't mean to say you can't have an agent, and it's certainly not our objective. In fact, we welcome agents and we welcome people that represent their artists to register, because it may be opening a different market that they weren't aware of, and giving them their talent exposure. So there really isn't a downside, and I have no desire to negotiate people's contracts and whatever. That's why they have agents. And also what I feel is that it's a great opportunity for agents who are looking for new talent that is unrepresented, that can be found on Talent Finders, and who knows, they could actually get new new talent on their books. So to me, I don't view it as competition, and that's not my objective as far as Talent Finders is concerned. And I think everybody at the end of the day can benefit.
You know what, I do too. And I love that you were saying that it's not just actors and models, it's speakers, it's entrepreneurs, it's athletes, it's a wide range of individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it could be jugglers, it could be, the cirque entertainers that you see, like, incredible, gymnasts. It's endless. The amount of talent that could, we had people when we first started who came to us and said they were looking for a gymnast who could, do the pommel horse thing, and we actually found somebody, and they got, for half a day's work, they got paid pretty well. And that was because we provided that. So, you get different requests for different things. Some are weird and some I don't entertain at all, to be honest. I've had some strange requests.
Oh, I bet. So, it's just opening up a whole new can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But, I think for the most part, obviously it's all above board. We're not talking about, strippers and all that stuff. I don't berate them, and I don't, people have their choices, but that's not the kind of entertainment that I also have to kind of maintain some level. And it's not a discriminatory thing. It's just, we also have to be careful ourselves what kind of talent we put on.
Oh, Karen, this interview has gone by so quickly. I really enjoyed it. You have so many facets to yourself. You are helping so many individuals out there with everything that you're doing. One of the things I want to ask you, is there any last minute, maybe some tips, some tools, something to inspire our listeners?
Well, I think that the biggest thing as an entrepreneur myself is that, anybody that's looking to pursue an entrepreneurial journey, I always say to people, it is wonderful, but it is challenging, and it is a very lonely and difficult path. Even people like Elon will tell you, and I don't even want to classify myself close to Elon, but it's not easy. And I just think that people need to be aware that there is a lot of sacrifice, a lot of tears that people don't necessarily see. And, you know, I just want people to understand that it comes and requires a lot of sacrifice, a lot of personal, personal challenges emotionally that you deal with that people, again, don't necessarily see. And, but if you're willing to live humbly, and, even those people who say, oh, I want to get funding, and then they go out and they buy cars and houses and all this, it is not like that, and that's the other thing is, sometimes people, like, I'm very cautious about the way that I position myself, even on social media, because I don't want people to think, oh, I fly here and it's all glamorous, because it's not. I mean, I have slept, in apartments with mice in middle of Hell's Kitchen, like in New York City. So I don't want people to be delusional, and also people need to, like I said, live humbly and don't spend on things you can't afford. And I've always lived by that principle, and it's actually been beneficial, because I never spend more than I can afford, and I only buy what I need at the time. And I'm not it's not about designer and I have to show everybody that I get projected on social media. And I think this is part of the reason why we have mental health issues, because people are creating very false narratives for a lot of people. And even in the world of celebrity, people are looking up to these people, but behind the scenes, they're depressed, they're anxious, they have anxiety, they have all these mental health issues, because we as society are fueling the wrong things. So that's my opinion as far as what I feel COVID is amplified in the last year and a half. It's always been there, but I think COVID has just highlighted and accelerated and amplified what's wrong with society and where we need to change. And in my opinion, if you're willing to put in the sacrifice, you're willing to go without certain things, and when it gets hard, and it will get hard, you just have to make the choice that you're not going to quit. And it's still not easy for me, but I'm still out here doing what I need to do. So that would be my advice to everybody.
I love the advice. Thank you so much, Karen. You are absolutely inspiring. I hope that you come back on the Divas That Care again, because I know that there's so much more that you can share with us, so much more that you can say to inspire us. And we would love to learn more about everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me.
It was my pleasure. And thank you to all of our amazing listeners. As I said in the beginning, it's because of all of you. It's 11 seasons, 30 countries. Oh my goodness, guys. I am beyond grateful to all of our listeners. And, that's why we are able to continue to promote and talk to fantastic people, inspiring people, people that are making a difference in the world. And we are going to continue to do that with all of our hosts on the Divas That Care network. So I want you to make sure that you check out all of them at divasthatcare.com. You can listen to our shows on Spotify, iTunes, Skechers, and so many other platforms out there. Again, thank you so much for all of you that have tuned in today. I hope you have a fantastic day and that you make sure you do something kind. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.